I remember the exact moment the glass touched my lips, and how everything inside me hesitated. It wasn't fear, not yet. Just a strange, quiet pause, like my instincts were whispering something I didn't want to hear. And then, he screamed. But to understand why that scream still echoes in my head, you need to know how much I trusted him, how much I loved him like my own son. The night of the celebration was supposed to be perfect. $30 million. Even now, saying it out loud feels unreal. It wasn't luck. It wasn't some overnight miracle. It was decades of grinding work, sleepless nights, and risks that nearly broke me. When the deal finally closed, I didn't feel like a winner. I felt relieved, like I could finally breathe again. And naturally, I wanted to celebrate with the people who mattered most. My daughter, Aisha, was the first person I called. She cried on the phone. Not loudly, just soft, overwhelmed tears. The kind that make your chest tighten because you realize someone else has been carrying your weight with you all along. And then there was him, my son-in-law, Fahad. He picked up the second call. "Baba," he said, his voice warm, steady. "Proud. You did it." No hesitation, no awkwardness, just pure happiness. That was Fahad. Or at least, that's who I believed he was. I met Fahad 8 years ago, when Aisha first brought him home. I'll admit I was skeptical. Not because of who he was, but because of what I'd seen before. People change when money enters the picture. And even back then, while I wasn't rich, I was comfortable enough to attract the wrong kind of attention. But Fahad didn't fit that mold. He was respectful, almost to a fault. He listened more than he spoke. And when he did speak, it wasn't to impress, it was to understand. I tested him quietly. I'd bring up business topics. Complicated ones, just to see if he'd pretend to know things he didn't. He never did. He'd just smile and say, "I'd like to learn that someday." That honesty. It stayed with me. Over time, he became more than just my daughter's husband. He became part of my routine. We'd sit together in the evenings, sometimes in silence, sometimes talking about life. Work or nothing at all. There was a calmness in his presence that I grew to depend on. And when Aisha and he went through their difficult phase, the kind every marriage faces, it was me he came to, not to complain, to fix things. "I don't want to lose her," he told me once, sitting across from me at the dining table long after everyone had gone to bed. I remember looking at him, really looking at him, and thinking, this man loves my daughter, so I helped him, not as a father-in-law, but as someone who believed in him. And they made it through, stronger. So when I say I trusted Fahad, I don't mean casually. I mean completely. The celebration was held at my house. Nothing too extravagant, just close family, a few old friends, and a quiet sense of victory in the air. Laughter echoed through the rooms, glasses clinked softly, and for the first time in years, I allowed myself to relax. Aisha looked radiant that night. She kept hugging me over and over like she was afraid I'd disappear. "You deserve this," she whispered. And Fahad, he was everywhere. Greeting guests, refilling drinks, making sure everything was perfect. At one point, I pulled him aside. "You don't have to do all this," I told him. "Tonight is for you, too." He smiled, small, almost shy. "It's for you, Baba. Let me handle it." There was something in his tone. Not wrong, just different. But I brushed it off. Maybe he was just overwhelmed. After all, this kind of success changes things for everyone. The wine came out later in the evening, a special bottle I had been saving for years. I'd always told myself I'd open it when something truly meaningful happened. And this was it. I watched as Fahad carefully took the bottle, inspecting the label almost thoughtfully. "You kept this all this time?" he asked. "For the right moment," I replied. He nodded, then disappeared into the kitchen to open it. I didn't think twice about it. Why would I? A few minutes later, he returned with a tray of glasses. Everything looked normal. Perfect, even. He handed the first glass to Aisha. The second, to me. And for a brief second, just a second, our eyes met. There was something there. Not guilt, not fear. Just intensity. Like he was waiting for something. I took the glass. The room around me felt warm, alive, filled with people who had been part of my journey. This was the moment I had imagined for years. "To family," I said, raising the glass slightly. "To family," they echoed. I brought the glass closer to my lips. And that's when it happened again. That feeling. That quiet hesitation. I couldn't explain it. There was no smell, no visible sign. Nothing to justify the sudden unease creeping into my chest. But instinct doesn't need proof. It just knows. I glanced at Fahad. He was watching me, not casually, not like everyone else, focused, waiting. I smiled anyway. Because what kind of man questions his own son-in-law in a moment like this? What kind of father doubts the man who stood by his daughter? Who called him Baba with genuine respect? So I ignored the feeling, and I took a sip. The taste was slightly off. Not bad, just different. I couldn't place it. Before I could think more about it, a loud sound cut through the room, a glass shattering. Everyone turned. It was Fahad. He had dropped his glass. His face had changed completely, drained of color, eyes wide with something I had never seen before, fear, real uncontrollable fear. And then he screamed. Not a word. Not a name. Just a raw, desperate scream that froze every single person in that room. My hand tightened around the glass. My heartbeat slowed, then quickened. Because in that moment, as everyone rushed toward him, I realized something. He wasn't looking at the broken glass. He wasn't looking at anyone else. He was looking at me. For a second, no one moved. The room, once full of laughter and warmth, collapsed into a heavy, suffocating silence. Fahad's scream didn't fade. It lingered, echoing in the walls, in my chest, in the space between what I believed and what I was beginning to understand. And his eyes, they never left me. Fahad! Aisha rushed to him, her voice trembling as she grabbed his arms. What happened? What's wrong? He couldn't answer. His lips parted, but no words came out. His breathing was uneven, almost panicked. Like he was trying to say something, his body refused to let him. But his gaze, it stayed locked on me, on the glass still in my hand. I looked down at it. The wine shimmered under the soft lights. Calm and undisturbed, completely ordinary. Yet nothing about this moment felt ordinary anymore. A strange chill crept up my spine. Fahad, I said, my voice quieter than I expected. What is it? He flinched at the sound of my voice. Not subtly, not something you could ignore. He flinched, like I had just said something dangerous. He finally managed, his voice cracking. I didn't... He stopped. His eyes darted around the room, then back to me, then to the glass. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. It wasn't fear. It was clarity. Because suddenly all those small, forgettable moments, they didn't feel so forgettable anymore. The way he insisted on handling the drinks. The way he watched me just seconds ago. That intensity. That waiting. I placed the glass down on the table beside me. Carefully, quietly. No sudden movements. But it didn't matter. Fahad noticed, and his reaction was immediate. Don't, he shouted, stepping forward so abruptly that Aisha stumbled back in shock. The room gasped. I didn't move. I just looked at him. Really looked at him. Don't what? I asked. Aisha turned between us, confusion flooding her face. What is going on? Why are you acting like this? But Fahad didn't answer her. He couldn't. Because whatever was happening, it wasn't about her. It was about me. I need you to tell me something, I said, my voice steady, even though my heart had begun to pound in a slow, deliberate rhythm, the kind that comes before a truth you're not ready to hear. His throat tightened. He tried again. Nothing. So I took a step closer, not aggressively, not confrontational, just enough to close the distance between us. You opened the bottle, I said. You poured the glasses. A pause. You handed this to me. Another pause. Why? The question hung in the air like something fragile. And for the first time since I had known him, Fahad looked like a stranger. I didn't mean, he whispered. The words barely reached me, but they were enough. Aisha shook her head, her voice rising. Didn't mean what? Fahad, you're scaring me! Tears had started forming in her eyes now, her hands trembling as she reached for him again. But he stepped back, away from her. Away from everyone, I thought, he said, his voice breaking completely now. I thought it would be different. Different. The word echoed in my mind. Different than what? The room felt smaller, tighter, like the walls were slowly closing in. Different from what, Fahad? I asked. And this time, My voice wasn't as calm. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing once, twice, like he was trapped inside a decision he could no longer escape. Then he stopped. And finally, he looked at Aisha. Not at me. At her. I was tired, he said. The words came out low, almost defeated. Tired of feeling like everything belonged to him. Aisha froze. What are you talking about? She whispered. He laughed. A hollow, empty sound that didn't belong to the man I thought I knew. His house, his money, his decisions. Even our problems, he gestured vaguely, we solved them his way. That's not true, Aisha said quickly, but her voice lacked certainty. And that hurt more than anything else. I didn't interrupt. I needed to hear this. All of it. I kept telling myself it didn't matter, Fahad continued. That I was grateful. That I respected him. He looked at me again. And I do. The contradiction sat heavily between us. But somewhere along the way, he swallowed hard. I stopped feeling like your son. A pause. And started feeling like a guest who never left. The words hit deeper than I expected, because they weren't entirely wrong, and that made them dangerous. But this, Aisha gestured toward the table. Toward the untouched glass I had set down. What does this have to do with anything? Her voice was shaking now, breaking under the weight of something she didn't fully understand. Fahad closed his eyes. For a long moment, he said nothing. And when he opened them again, whatever he had been holding back was gone. I just wanted control, he said quietly. The room held its breath. Just once. My chest tightened. Control over what? He looked at the glass, then at me. And this time, there was no hesitation. The moment, he said. Silence. Heavy, absolute. Aisha let out a soft, disbelieving laugh. You're not making sense. Just say it clearly, Fahad. But I didn't ask him to clarify, because I already understood. Not everything, but enough. You changed something, I said. Not a question. A statement. His shoulders dropped, and in that small, almost invisible movement, he answered me. Aisha's breath caught. Changed what? No one spoke. Not immediately, because now the truth was no longer hiding. It was standing right in front of us, waiting to be acknowledged. I looked at the glass again. At the wine I had almost finished. At the moment I had trusted completely, and then I looked back at him, at the man I had defended, believed in, welcomed into my life without hesitation. Why mine? I asked. That was the question that mattered. Not what he did, but why me? His lips trembled. And for the first time since this began, he looked ashamed. I didn't think you'd notice, he whispered. Aisha gasped. Softly, her hand flying to her mouth. I didn't react. Not outwardly. Because inside, something far quieter was happening. Something heavier. I nodded slowly. Not in agreement. Not in acceptance. Just acknowledgement. Then I reached for the glass again. No! Fahad lunged forward, panic surging back into his voice. Please, don't! But this time I didn't stop. I lifted it. Held it between us. You wanted control of the moment, I said. My voice calm in a way that didn't feel natural anymore. So let's not waste it. His face went pale. Aisha grabbed his arm, her voice breaking completely now. Fahad, what did you do? He didn't answer her. He couldn't. Because his eyes were fixed on me, on the glass, on the choice I was about to make. And for the first time that night, I wasn't hesitating anymore.